What happened?
Someone is coming after us.
So, I Know What You Did Last Summer 2025 is the latest of many horror franchises that have gotten what we tend to call the legacy sequel treatment, where it still exists within the same timeline and continuity of the original film, so it's not a remake, but we're starring all new cast members and a new generation, and we have some of the old cast come in as more of supporting characters to lend the story over to the next generation and lead us into wherever it's going to go. In general, I'm not really a big fan of this approach. There are some movies that do it well, but I think more often than not, it tends to fall flat. Ever since Halloween 2018, then we got Texas Chainsaw, we got Scream 5, and now we have I Know What You Did Last Summer. Just saw this movie earlier today. I'm not going to spoil anything offhand. I'll leave that towards the end of the video, and I'll warn you before I get to it, because, of course, this is a murder mystery movie as well. But I do have to say one thing right off the bat that, might turn people away from this review just to begin with. Although I enjoy the original I Know What You Did Last Summer quite a bit. I like it. I enjoy it. I think it's a good movie, okay? But I don't think it's some kind of horror masterpiece. What I do think is that it hit at a specific time in horror history in that 90s era post-Scream wave of horror movies, and was one of the big culturally relevant movies at the time, one of the big movies that was parodied in Scary Movie, and it just, and it starred, these up-and-coming stars that were super popular at the time, Freddie Prinze Jr., Jennifer Love Hewitt, and, of course, Sarah Michelle Gellar, who was on, season 2 or 3 of Buffy at the time, in the heyday of Buffy. So, all of this coming together, Kevin Williamson, the writer of Scream, it was this perfect storm of events that most people, connected to and remembered from back in the day, and as a 90s kid, I did too. But whenever I go back and rewatch the movie, I usually find myself really enjoying the first half. I love everything that happens when they hit the fishermen on the road and have to dispose of the body and they decide what they're going to do. And then I like a couple of the kill sequences, but I think it kind of falls apart towards the end. I never really held the original film in as high of regard as I do some of the other 90s horror movies that came out, or Scream, or any of those. And then the sequels of I Know What You Did Last Summer, I think I've watched them once a piece. I did go back and rewatch the original once again before seeing the new version, but I just want you to know where I'm coming from, basically. I just want you to know that, although I do like and enjoy the original I Know What You Did Last Summer, I don't hail it as some kind of masterpiece. So when I went into this movie, what I really wanted was just a genuinely good and fun slasher flick with a couple of callbacks to the original, seeing Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. again. That was enough for me. So, my expectations were low. But I go into this movie and I still can't help but feel a bit disappointed by it. And I really didn't want to be. I really wanted to enjoy this movie, even if it's just a turn your brain off slasher film, which it kind of is. But there are just multiple things that happen in this film that really made me roll my eyes to the point where it was a little bit too much. It was right in the middle, and then it just swerved a little too close to the wrong side for me, and ultimately I was just very, very disappointed by this movie. The premise of the film is an extremely similar setup as the original, where a group of friends are driving on the same mountain. Sorry, I'm just overdubbing here because some people might consider the opening incident to be a spoiler, and I said it in my original review, so I'm just going to say they are involved in the death of somebody, but I won't say how. They decide to, they're not going to say anything about it. They're not going to say that they were involved. And then it cuts to 1 year later, and all of a sudden notes are showing up saying, I know what you did last summer, recreating a similar scenario as the original. And I think the biggest issue I had with this movie was with its dialogue and the script at hand, because it seemed as though this was one of those kind of movies that really was trying to throw as many Gen Z terminology, slang words at you as it possibly could, while at the same time doing nothing but constantly referencing the fact that the original murders happened in 1997. Remember 1997? We need you to know it was 1997. Do you remember 1997? 1997! It was a good year. I kind of miss it. But anyways, it's like this battle between these two forms of writing dialogue, where on one hand, everybody has to make a reference to 1997, and on the other hand, we have to throw in like as many Gen Z terminology words as we possibly can. On top of that, there's a lot of, and again, this is something that has bothered me about a lot of recent movies, but there's a lot of jokes and humor that is thrown in at times where I really don't think it should be there. I don't want to spoil anything, but for example, during one of the murders, I won't say who it is or how they get killed, you know, he has like a final line before he dies where he's like, you know, I'll give you my crypto wallet or something like that. And it's like, things like that just take me out of the movie completely. And look, I understand this is not a movie that's meant to be taken seriously. This is just a, you know, popcorn slasher flick. And listen, I love slasher movies. It's like my favorite genre of horror. I've watched hundreds of slasher movies throughout the course of my life. Good ones, bad ones. This is not like an abysmally bad one. It's not down there with the terribly bad ones, but it also doesn't quite hit that line where it's so bad it's good, like something like Pieces, you know, where it's like it's so ridiculous that you just laugh in every scene and enjoy it in a different way. This one just toes that line where it doesn't quite become either. It doesn't really become a good slasher movie, but it also doesn't become so bad that like you can enjoy it in a fun, over-the-top, ironic way. It just sort of is very standard, while, like I said, constantly making all these references and callbacks to the original, to the point where if I had not rewatched the original a couple days before seeing this, I would have been lost in a few moments. The standout to me was a girl named Danica. She's kind of like this preppy rich girl, and in the beginning of the film, you know, she's celebrating getting married, and then when it cuts to 1 year later, she's having another like engagement party or something. So I thought that was a joke that actually landed pretty well with me. And she was, you know, she's the kind of character that's very into like meditation and spirituality and her crystals and horoscopes and all that. And I think the actress, I don't think I recognize the actress at all, but I think she played that type of character very well. And she actually wound up becoming a lot more endearing throughout the course of the movie than I ever expected her to. So I will give her props for that. The other character I really liked is not involved with the main group of kids, but it's a woman that's a podcaster about doing you know, horror podcast. It's like Live, Laugh, Slaughter or something like that. And she's here visiting the town specifically to talk about the 1997 murders and stuff. So she was pretty entertaining, and also kind of that representation of somebody like that would do a YouTube series or, you know, a podcast series that would be out there catching video footage or recording, you know, a podcast or something. And when it comes to Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr., I'll say this: neither of them have a lot of screen time, but they have very important roles to play in the movie. Freddie Prinze Jr. is in the movie a lot more than Jennifer Love Hewitt is. And they do very interesting things with both of their characters, a lot of which I do not necessarily think makes a lot of sense, but they're there, and, you know, getting to see them again is cool. And it is kind of strange because you know, seeing these actors so much older, you know, and you're so used to like locking them in your mind in a particular era, and then now you see what they look like modern day. Sometimes it is like a shock to the system, and you think like, damn, I'm getting old. Like, you know, because I remember when I Know What You Did Last Summer came out. I mean, I was a kid, but like, it's in my mind. I remember it clearly. I remember people talking about it, and it's just kind of crazy to see the actors so much older. But, you know, they both do a fine job for what they're given, and it's nice to see them in here. I'm glad that the you know, they didn't do a remake and they didn't forget about them. Like, they're very important in the movie, even though they don't have a lot of screen time. But I gotta say, like, one of the things that really bums me out is the kill scenes. I mean, when you go to a slasher movie, that's what you expect. And once again, the original I Know What You Did Last Summer doesn't have spectacular kill scenes. Actually, hardly anybody really dies in that movie. But we are in 2025 now. You know, we are in a post-Terrifier world. And look, I would never expect or even want a I Know What You Did Last Summer movie to have gore like Terrifier. You know what I mean? That's not what I'm saying. And I know if I don't clarify that, somebody in the comments will say, you know, that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that I don't think you can get away with just this very standard, like he has a hook in his hand, swipes the hook, and then it cuts to the wall and there's blood splatter on the wall, and then it cuts to the next scene. It's like, we want to see the kills, and you do see some of them, but they're very basic. They're not very creative. Most of them are just done with the hook itself. And I guess maybe there's a charm to that. There's a simplicity to that. And I understand that, but I just felt it was really, really lacking in the kill effects. And there's some shots where you see bodies afterwards that are way more mangled and way more ripped apart than what you actually saw happen. And like, that was cool to see, but you don't actually get to see the murder itself happen. And, you know, I don't know if I'm going to be on some kind of list somewhere saying that I want to see more murder, but like, I want to see more murder. But between the lack of good kills, the bad dialogue, and so many jump scares that are fake, that aren't even having anything to do, it's just a fake out scare, happens over and over again, along with something else that happens in the movie that I can't talk about. I gotta say that this was kind of a bummer for me. I don't think that it's like trash. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to necessarily give the wrong impression here. Like, I think this movie is entertaining enough. Like, if you're going to the theater and you just want to see something silly and ridiculous and remember those nostalgic vibes of the original, yeah, that's all in there. But other than that, you know, this was probably one of my most disappointing movies of the whole year, if I'm being honest with you guys. And that's from not having like super strong ties to the original. I love the original, but it's never been one of my favorite horror movies. And I think this one is definitely very lackluster compared to that. But there's a couple of things that I want to talk about with spoilers. So I'm going to go into spoilers now. So you're being warned, spoilers. Go ahead and comment on the video and like it if you haven't seen it yet, or if you don't care. I'm letting you guys know now. I'm going to get into spoilers. I'm going to ruin the movie. I'm going to ruin it. Okay. All right, here we go. Actually, first I want to give another positive, but it is a spoiler positive that I couldn't talk about in the regular review, and that is the Sarah Michelle Gellar cameo. Now, it has been known that Sarah Michelle Gellar was going to be a part of this movie, and she definitely is the best character in the original, but she gets killed off. She's also Buffy, so she's very close to my heart. But, you know, rumblings were that she was going to be in this movie, but how is she going to be in it because she was killed? Well, she's in it due to a dream sequence. Good enough, but it's a really good dream sequence. It almost made me wish I was watching a different movie because it kind of felt like a Nightmare on Elm Street scene. You see the one character that I talked about earlier that's, you know, feels very connected to Sarah Michelle Gellar's character from the original, like learning about her history and stuff. And so she dreams of her in her pageant outfit, and Sarah like taunts her about the dead body and everything, and then her face starts to deteriorate, and you see like a skeleton turn to ashes underneath her skin and stuff. And of course, you know, Sarah Michelle Gellar's got that snarky attitude the whole time. It was a really good cameo. Yeah, it was just a dream sequence that doesn't really impact anything in the story, but it was nice to have her in there, to remember her role in this franchise. And, you know, she's a great actress. I love whenever she pops up in anything. It was probably my favorite scene of the whole movie. But now let's talk about the thing that really is going to bring this movie down for a lot of people, I think. Some people may love this decision. And look, I respect this movie for having the guts to do this, doing the thing that Scream would never dare do. But they make Freddie Prinze Jr. the killer. Well, they actually have two killers. There's one girl that is part of the friend group that felt like she was abandoned by her friends, and the person that died she was attached to and stuff. So she vowed vengeance, but she is actually working for Freddie Prinze Jr., and he decides that he's going to use this as an opportunity to bring back this threat of the fishermen that happened in 97 because the town has covered it up. There's like a whole subplot with like the, I think it's the mayor of the town, but he's basically like removed everything that is attached to the murders that have happened, and the town's very silent about it. And when new murders start happening, he's sweeping it under the rug. It's the classic stereotype, you know, person in power trying to pretend everything is just fine when it's absolutely not fine. And the big thing is that, you know, they're trying to cover up and hide everything that happened in the past. And so I suppose the motivation for his character is that, you know, this is going to bring it back into the consciousness, and this is going to remind people of what happened and yada, yada, yada. But it just rubbed me the wrong way because, look, again, not being like super attached to this franchise, I still did not think that there was enough there for his character to go that far, especially after just rewatching the original a few days ago. I get that it's been like 25 years in between, and a lot of development can happen to you in 25 years, but at the same time, it just felt like it was a twist for the sake of being a shocking twist. And I think that's the thing that bugged me the most about it. You know, for many years, people have been saying like, oh, what if, Sydney from Scream or Gail from Scream actually ended up being the killer in one of the sequels? And it's like, well, yeah, that would be a really shocking, crazy revelation twist, but would it make sense? And here, it seems like they were like, who gives a single shit about it making sense? Let's just do it. Scream doesn't do it, so let's do it. And I'm like, okay, well, in that respect, I guess, okay, why not? But at the same time, when you're watching it and it's revealed, you just sit there thinking like, what? What? Why? And it builds to like one of the dumbest callback moments. Like one of my biggest pet peeves in sequels or reboots is when they use a famous movie quote from a previous movie in the new movie. Now, sometimes it can be done well. Like Star Wars has always had a character say, I have a bad feeling about this. But that's like a very natural thing that you would say, right? Then there's other movies like, even though I like Alien Romulus, I didn't like when Andy was like, get away from her, you bitch. Or even in the Alien vs. Predator movies where they're like, get to the chopper. Like, there's just certain things where it just comes off way cornier than I feel like it's intended. And here, as Julie confronts Rey, you know, he's holding up the hook and she's like, what are you waiting for? And I get that that's like probably something you would say in that moment, I guess. But her most famous line from the original is, what are you waiting for? And I was like, oh my God, why? I mean, when they first revealed the killer as part of the friend group, it's one of the girls, and like, Scream's kind of gotten away with it here or there, but there's plenty of times where you see them in costume and it's clearly like the build of a man, and then they reveal themselves and it's a woman. So when she revealed herself, I was going to go with it because of how cheesy the movie had been up to that point. So I was like, okay, fine, it was just her. But still in the back of my mind, I was thinking, but man, those shots, like, that was clearly like a tall dude, like, in the fisherman outfit. And then, there's a moment like right after that where Freddie Prinze Jr. comes onto the boat and, shoots her. And at that point I was like, are they really going to do that? Because it didn't feel like the finale. It didn't feel like the ending. And I was like, there's more to this movie. And then they do it. So yeah, if you have any nostalgic attachment to that character and you wanted him to remain a good boy, he does not. Once again, I respect the ambition of doing that, but at the same time, I just didn't buy it. I didn't buy that the character would go that far and hurt that many people after what he'd been through. And even at the situation at hand, like, I just didn't buy it. Like, straight up, just did not work for me whatsoever. I know I shouldn't be thinking that hard in a movie like this, but it did not work for me at all. And it was a huge, like, cringe eye roll moment at the end of the film. Having said that, maybe I'm in the minority because I honestly have not seen anybody's reviews for this yet. I haven't read or watched any, so maybe I'm just on a little island and people love this movie. But I gotta say, for me personally, I was super disappointed with it. I didn't like the killer reveal. I thought the kills were very tame and boring. I thought the dialogue was really bad. The humor didn't work for me. Very few things I liked about the movie, other than a couple of the performances and the dream sequence with Sarah Michelle Gellar. Besides that, I think I'll pass on this. But if you haven't seen the original in a while, rewatch it. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think down below. Leave your thoughts, comments, opinions. Thanks as always for watching, guys. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Comment to help it out in the algorithm. If you want support on a deeper level, go ahead and check the description below. All the social media links where you can follow me, as well as Patreon and channel memberships. Thanks again, guys, and I'll talk to you later.